Ken Schafer, good afternoon. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing well today. Thank
Fan-
you.
Fantastic, fantastic. Looking over some of the stuff you have on TikTok and Instagram. I really like it. Very unique uh, content. Let me know exactly what got you started with the erectile dysfunction and the sexual stuff and how you became a coach. I'm really intrigued. I know there's a lot of guys. It's not something that's a small problem. It's actually a rather big problem. Uh, can you tell us your journey and your story?
Yeah, it's a very convoluted journey. So I'll try to iron out the all the windy roads that I went down. But when I was 48, which was almost 12 years ago now, I started to get ED. And like most men, I went to my doctor, and I went to a series of doctors actually, and they threw pills at me and sent me on my way. And I naively accepted that that was the best option for me. I assumed that since they were doctors, they knew what they were doing.
Makes sense.
Well, eventually, what they were doing, and this is a systemic problem throughout the medical community. What they were doing was treating my symptoms. They weren't treating the problem. So there was an underlying problem. ED is usually a sign of some health issue, and it varies from person to person. The causes of ED can be very complicated, and they can be very simple. But there was no effort made to understand what was causing it. They just treated the symptoms, and because the underlying causes went untreated, they got worse over time, and eventually the little blue pills stopped working.
That's scary. I'll be honest with you. Were you a little bit scared at that point?
I was terrified.
Yeah, yeah, that
I
sounds
was
horrible.
terrified. So I did what most men will do. I went back. Uh, I had a different doctor at this time, but largely I went through the same process with one difference. Um, so originally, my doctors did give me some tests. They gave me various hormone tests and whatnot, and told me they look fine. Uh, but this time I educated myself. I was getting hormone tests, and the doctor's saying they look fine. But I was looking at the research, and they weren't fine. And I kept getting this same reaction by my doctors over and over again. And I was looking at the research. I was reading up on what experts in men's health were saying, and it wasn't adding up.
So
So,
that's pretty scary because you hear horror stories of people getting the wrong limbs cut off and all kinds of other things. So I don't want to deter from your story, but it's
okay.
I think we have a systemic issue with the medical community not having the time to really delve into a person's personal experience, their macro needs, their small. What would you call it, man? It's we have so many little not idiosyncrasies, but little nuances about ourselves that are so profoundly important to the circumstances in our situation that a doctor in 3 minutes will never be able to diagnose properly.
You're right. And it's a systemic issue with time, and it's also a systemic issue with understanding. One thing I came to understand is that when you get a test, and this may not apply to all tests. I can't speak to all tests, but the tests that I was taking specific to hormones, uh, what doctors will do is look at those results, and they will fall within a range. And there's a range that's considered normal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that what most doctors interpret that to mean is if you're within the normal range, you're within the healthy range. But the healthy range and the normal range are two different things. They overlap, but they are different.
Yeah,
And
I think
most
it's
doctors,
again. I think it's that scope of time. So they need to have a bunch of parameters they can jump through real quick and say, okay,
yes.
X, Y, and Z are good. Let's go look at W.
Well, and there is a level of understanding. And some doctors, I wouldn't expect, like if I go to a GP, to understand the nuances of of men's hormones and the levels. That's too much to ask. But when I go into a specialist, I would expect that. And unfortunately, it took me a long time to find doctors that really did understand that.
Yeah, and most people don't have the luxury or the time or the resources to do the research. Um, it's no small task.
You're right. You're absolutely, and that's part of the reason why I'm getting into what I'm doing. I had uh, the will, I had the resources, and I had the time I needed to dig in and do this. And I know that there are a lot of guys out there who just simply don't have those resources. And they may, I can read research and understand it. I can make sense of the statistics. Most people just can't do that. I mean, that's not a reasonable expectation from most people.
Even if they could, the daunting amount of it becomes overwhelming, and I find myself falling short. If I have to do a task that turns out to be 75 times bigger than I was willing to invest in, I will at least 7 out of 10 times just capitulate. There's just
Yeah.
no rational reason to keep going when my brain is already frustrated. And now I'm not in sync with myself, and I just, the probability of me following through gets very, very limited.
Yeah, and I think I mean, that's true for me on many things. For me, this was just something I cared about. And
See, I
I
think that
was,
may have been a big factor.
yes, it was a big factor. I mean, you know, when I need a plumber, I don't try to figure out the plumbing. I could do it, but I don't try to figure it out. I get a plumber. But on this, I just found that I could not trust the advice I was getting from my doctors.
Do you find that the research that's available to you on the internet, do you find the resources that are available on Google, are they sufficient?
They are, if you go to scientific websites and if you go to doctors who specialize in men's health, uh, who can summarize the data
Yeah,
for those people, which is most people who don't really want to plow through all of it.
because it's a lot. And you're talking years worth in some cases. And
Yes,
then you're trying to find the nuances, like you said, hormone 7. If it's 3% high and hormone 2 is 3% low, those two parameters actually mean something.
right,
And then they wouldn't get caught if you were just skimming through and finding everything within the two lines and say, okay, 1 through 7's fine. They're all close enough so that you don't see a spike, which would be the easy out for a doctor.
right.
And yeah, there's so much. I have a question. How about psychological stuff? I personally experienced a situation where it wasn't a physical situation. It was I was with this girl, and she was a little bit older than I'm used to, and I could not fulfill that need. I don't know what it was in my head, but I went back to the person I was with before, and there wasn't a problem again. The problem just disappeared immediately, and it wasn't that she wasn't pretty. She held up fantastic for her age. I have no complaints, and if I could, I would just compliment her right now. I don't want to throw anybody out there, but just the fact that I couldn't perform, it frustrated the hell out of me, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. And then, like I said, I went right back to the person before, and everything was fine again. So I don't know what kind of psychological thing I was playing with.
Yeah, there's no question for a lot of men, ED is not really, or problems performing uh, are not really necessarily physical. There is a psychological
Yeah,
component,
isn't that
and,
weird?
and and they play off of each other. When you're having the physical problems, you can psych yourself out,
Yeah,
and that it just plays into it. So, the psychology of the situation is definitely a factor.
yeah, isn't it weird, man? Because yeah, I have noticed that my libido is going down a little bit. I'm 44. I'm not saying it's gone. I'm good, but I can't get myself all amped up. If I get all amped up, I'll kill it. It's actually kind
Yeah,
of weird because man, when you're in your 20s, man, you're good to go all day, all night, 7 days a week. And I didn't realize that if I got into my mind too much, I could literally ruin a good thing in the moment. Didn't even know that was a possibility.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up age because that is an important factor. And my mentors, I have two people I consider my mentors, Dr. Rachel Ross, MD, PhD. Uh, and she's a minor celebrity. She was a co-host of a talk show called The Doctors. Um, and another practitioner of Eastern medical arts. His name is Master Lauren Johnson. Is it okay that I'm mentioning these people by
Oh
name?
yeah, as long as as long as you're comfortable mentioning them, that's fine with me.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Um, they both have recommendations for how often men should have sex to the point of climax. And it's as you get older, it goes down dramatically. Uh, so in your 20s, they recommend 5 to 7 times a week. And then in your 30s, it's 3 to 4 times. And then in your 40s, it's maybe once or twice a week
I
at
would
the
say my
most.
drive is about 3 or 4 times a week. My need is
Yeah.
probably like two,
Yeah.
because your mind is in a different level than your body.
Right,
Because you're
right.
still 18 in your mind.
Yes, I've been there. Believe me, I know it. Um, but there's a number of things that play into that. Your body, as it ages, doesn't replenish the resources it needs as quickly. Uh, Hormones play a factor. There's no denying that like testosterone begins to drop as you age. However, uh, one thing I would recommend to any man who doesn't feel that things are working the way they should is to get hormone tests and to check with a doctor who specializes in men's health with the results
Yeah, because
because
you don't know. It could be a heart thing too.
it could be a heart thing, yes. But libido is largely controlled by two hormones that would be testosterone and dopamine. And if either of those two are low, that could explain low libido.
Wow, you know what? I'll be honest with you. The dopamine thing blows my mind because I just talked to a coach that helps people overcome pornography and stuff, and the dopamine's a huge
Yes,
thing, and that
yes.
dopamine seems to actually negatively affect their ability to be intimate with real people after.
So, yeah, let me explain that a little bit. So, what happens, porn, there's a debate to whether or not it's actually an addiction. I believe that it can become an addiction for some people. And what's happening is they're chasing a dopamine rush. So they're looking at something, they're getting turned on, and the dopamine builds up. And that feels great. And then the next time they need something a little bit more racy to get the same dopamine rush. And then if they need more and more, it's like a drug, like a heroin.
Yeah, it's
They need
insane.
more and more.
Yeah,
And so then they get into a regular situation with real people and they can't get the dopamine up.
isn't that wild? And we're seeing this affluence of society to the point where shopping becomes an addiction, where the dopamine. I think we're getting such a high spike. It's kind of like you can binge watch TV. We have too much available to us to the point where there's no dopamine leveling out. There's no. It's almost like there's no earning it. You know what I mean? You don't
Yes,
have to earn it anymore.
yes. I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. So that's a whole nother. But we're getting in the weeds a little bit because I only got like an hour and a half, and I do want to pick your brain as much as I can.
Sure.
Um, Now, did I understand the math right? Are you 60 years old? Because you were saying it started at 40 something, and it was like 12 years
Yeah.
ago. So it sounded about
I
60.
am uh, almost 60. I will turn 60 in January.
Wow. Okay. So on that note, I was looking at some of your Instagram. Your physical exercise is phenomenal for your age.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got 15 years on me, and you did some burpees with that camera perpendicular, and your form was pretty damn good. And you did an awful lot of chin-ups on several different positions, which is also no joke for any man at any age. You got to tell us your secret, man. What is there any correlation between your journey with the ED and your physical exercise?
Well, there is, but I do want to say something about the burpees. On the day I filmed that, I was filming that for a demonstration, and my back was killing me on that
Really,
day,
really, okay,
so it was
phenomenal.
slowing me down.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. And then you're doing push-ups with the medicine
yeah,
ball, and then you're doing inverted push-ups with your feet on the bench. And
yeah,
I know for a fact, even in my 20s, all that stuff was real work. That was not a joke. That wasn't a game. I'll be honest with you. In my personal opinion, I would have thought at 60 you would hang up the hat for stuff like this. So how long you been
yeah,
working at
yeah.
it, man?
You know, I have been active all of my life, and even when I started getting testosterone problems, I still remained active, and I was able to maintain my strength. What changed was that I was putting on an awful lot of fat. I had a big layer of fat over my body.
Okay.
And once I got my hormones adjusted to where they were at healthy levels and got my diet squared away, um, then the fat melted off, and I was able to perform better because I wasn't pushing around an extra 20 or 25 pounds. So I've always been active, though. I mean, this is just a continuation of a lifestyle that I've lived.
Fantastic. That's great to hear, man. I assume that it makes a big difference because seeing you at 60, that's my goal, man. I want to be exactly where you're at 60 physically. No
Oh, thank
doubt.
you.
Yeah, yeah. So diet. What is the diet secret for the hormones? Are there any correlation with your hormone regulation and the food you're eating?
Yes. So uh, you need a well balanced diet. Now, by well balanced, this is my definition. Diet is a very controversial issue because it's much more complicated than people understand. And I don't believe that there's one diet that's perfect for everybody.
I agree.
But in general, you want a diet that's mostly plant based, lots of leafy green vegetables, lots of colors, but you need meat. I
Yeah,
do
yeah.
not.
I was just gonna say, what's your protein percentage?
I don't know the percentage, but I would say it's like 10%
10%.
of
Okay.
my diet.
How long have you
And
been doing it in that manner?
about a year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah. And that has helped. You need the protein and fat. You need fat in your diet for hormones. Hormones are basically a fat-based molecule. And uh, so if you're not getting adequate fat, and that's the problem with like the vegan diet, they're not getting adequate levels of fat. But you don't want to go all the way to the other end of the spectrum of where, like the carnivore diet, then you're not getting the vegetables you need. And that's important
Yeah,
for
there's minerals and
sexual
others.
growth.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff in
Yeah.
potatoes that people don't even know. Baked potato goes
Yes.
a long way, and salad goes a long way, and a couple issues can be resolved in just a few things. Yeah, it's a wild thing because you hear stories of guys that make the world record where they're the oldest man alive, and they run to these guys while they're still alive, and what's the secret to your life? And they always ask as many questions as they can. And one of the big ones they ask is, "What do you eat?" And I remember there was one guy in New York City when he was like 112 or whatever it was, still walking. Oldest man alive at the time. It didn't last very long, but he was old. And they asked him, "What was in your diet?" And it was crazy. He said that he narrowed his diet down to every dinner was not French toast, it was some toast fried in bacon fat.
Yeah.
He'd been eating that, he said, for like 4 or 5 years as his dinner. So, like you said, if I ate that, I would die. But if he ate it,
Right.
he would live another 10 years. So it is very, very specific to each person. And it's wild how one guy can do one thing and another person can't. And the regulation of your body, your hormones, food is a wild machine, man. It's more valuable than people think. And I'm coming to the conclusion that the processed food is near death all by itself.
Yes, you're
It would be
absolutely
better to
right
be a
about that.
carnivore. It'd be better to be a vegan. It would be better to be any of the other extremes if you could stay away from the processed food. Not saying any of the extremes are the best way. I'm just saying anything's better than the Hot Pockets and the pizza bites. These things are literally, there's
Yeah.
nothing
Well,
worse. I don't think there's
they've had
anything
all the
worse.
nutrition flushed out of them.
Yeah.
I mean, they process this food and it has almost no real nutritional value. Um, and I would also add to that that not only do you want to eat vegetables and meat that's not processed, but I and there's a big reason for this. I think people should eat the word just escaped me. I
I,
apologize.
no problem. I'll edit it out, man.
Food
I'll edit
that
it out.
food, food that hasn't been where they haven't used pesticides
Yeah, yeah, GMOs and other. They've got a whole list of things like that. Yeah.
yeah. So like uh, organic. That's what I'm trying to say.
Organic. Okay.
Organic food because the reason for that is because of the pesticides. And this is an issue that I uncovered in my research, and it's a public health issue that most people don't seem to be aware of. So plastic and uh, other chemicals and the pesticides that they're using on our food are called endocrine disrupting chemicals. They disrupt
They're
your
basically
endocrine system.
carcinogens. Yeah.
Well, that and they're killing our hormones. They act as like estrogen. So
Yeah.
they enter
They
their
say the
bodies
young men are,
and
yeah, they're saying young men are actually
yeah,
being affected the most with this.
yes, that's true.
Even worse than we
It's
are.
causing low testosterone in men and women, but it's more of a problem for men. It's causing infertility in men and women,
It's wild.
and it's the rates of infertility are climbing at 1% a year.
Which is
So that means,
unsustainable. That's unsustainable.
yeah, within a generation, most people right now, 1 in 4 couples can't conceive naturally. Within a generation, it will be 1 in 4 couples that can conceive naturally.
No, that's
If this
crazy.
if this
Is that serious? Are you sure of that statistic?
I I'm not being precise with the statistics,
Okay,
but if you
but it's in
do
that it's
do the
going in that
math in your head,
general. Yeah,
if one in 4 can't do it now, and it's increasing at 1% a year,
yeah.
and I've gotten this from some good sources. But if you calculate out 1% a year within 50 years, that's 75% of the population. If that trend
It doesn't even
continues,
have to be 75% because you only have to figure one person out of the two getting affected.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly,
because a couple is not one person. A couple is two people. Only one
right.
has to be
So I
malfunctioning.
mean, yeah,
So yeah,
seventy-five
you're
percent
right.
of
Actually,
couples.
it could actually cascade faster. Now that I think about it, actually, it's probably not that far from reality. But that's unsustainable. We already have a population decrease issue coming up in the next 50 years naturally. China decided to only have one kid for 50 years. That knocks their population in half in 2 generations, all by
Yes.
itself. And
Yep.
Europe isn't having children. America, North America in general, is not repopulating at 2.2 or whatever you need for a healthy repopulation growth. So we got a worldwide issue where South America and Africa are the only ones really pumping out the people right now.
That's true.
Yeah. Um, on that note, man, what do you think the solution is for some of these issues? Because plastic ain't going nowhere. Processed food ain't going nowhere. Because here's the deal: do you want your milk to go bad in like 20 hours and pay $40 a gallon, or do you want it homogenized and for it to sit on the shelf and in your fridge for 2 weeks? Because
Yeah,
you're not going to get milk at $4 a gallon if it's gone in a day.
you're absolutely right. This is as much an economic issue as
Yeah.
anything else,
Because I don't think
and
it was
it's
a
going to
malicious. Yeah, I don't think it was malicious either. I think everybody
no.
was like, I want the bread to last longer, so I can make it cheaper, so I can outstand the guy next to me, and my store will stay alive. I want the cans to be canned good, and all this stuff was designed to sit on the shelf longer so I could sell it for cheaper. So it wasn't like this like malicious intent. I want to get hormones messed up. No one was trying to go
Yeah.
there.
No, I don't think it was intentional.
Yeah,
What I do think is that many of these chemicals were used without enough research being done.
we were guinea
But
pigs.
I don't believe there was an intentional process of
No.
poisoning
Yeah,
people.
yeah, I don't think so either.
Uh, that, that's
It was just
that's
circumstantial. It
conspiracy
was
theory.
just yeah, it was just circumstantial. But it's
But
unfortunate that we went down that road accidentally.
yes, and we're paying the price for it. Um, and one thing that I'm seeing is the people who can afford it are trying to get quality food that isn't tainted.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, a large portion of the population, they have they have to balance their budget on a daily basis. Of course, they're going to buy they're going to buy the calories they need at the price they can afford, and that's going to mean processed food.
Oh,
And
well, hold
that's
on.
really unfortunate.
I'm on a budget. I have 6 children, and I'm the only income in the house, and I don't get food stamps
Yeah,
or anything. And I feed my kids relatively well. You can go really far with certain items. Bananas are
yeah,
extremely cheap. I think I pay
yeah.
47 cents a pound for
Hmm.
bananas. You do get a little limited on the meat. So when you make spaghetti and meat sauce, you're not putting 2 or 3 pounds of meat sauce in. You're putting 1 pound in. But nonetheless, if you want to do this, peanut butter and jelly is extremely cheap. If you look at the thing, there's no rapeseed oil on most of the peanut butter. Check it out. Pay the extra 20 cents a can. There's things that can be done that you could do on a budget. It's not impossible.
Oh, I agree, and I wasn't trying to imply that it was impossible, but it's much harder.
Well, people have to pay attention. People can't be lazy.
And
They have to do a little research and look.
right, exactly, and not everybody uh, is clued in. Most people are not clued in, so they don't even know they should be looking into this.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a complex problem. And everyone wants simple answers to complex problems, but there aren't simple answers.
No. Ken, it's a wild story, man. It's pretty cool to talk to someone about this stuff because I hear about it every once in a while. I do a lot of research of my own all the time for the podcast. I look and listen to other people's stuff, and I try to absorb what I can. But having someone boots on the ground, basically, Ken, you're great, man.
I could recommend a book if you're
Oh,
interested.
absolutely, yeah. Go right ahead, man.
Let me wait here and I'll show it to you. It's called S. Can you see it?
Go ahead, put it right next to the screen. There you go, perfect. Oh,
Okay. It's called Estrogeneration. Uh, it's kind of like the Bible to all the problems with chemicals in our environment. And it gives you a way to start avoiding them,
yeah,
to develop a personal plan to get plastic out of your kitchen, to get personal care products are natural, to avoid food that's been contaminated with pesticides and things like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I got a 6-year-old son, man. I don't want him to get all poisoned now. It affects him more now than it'll ever affect him later.
Absolutely. Children should be the first priority uh, because
So
uh,
would you recommend all plastic be gone altogether in your house if you could avoid it?
um, it depends on how it's used. If it's used with food, definitely, or liquids.
Okay.
Um, Never heat anything in plastic. He goes into much more detail, but there are some plastics that are relatively safe. Silicone containers are safe, um,
So what
but
is the difference with silicone and plastic? Why is silicone? It's still oil based, is it not?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I know that it's not plastic. It's a different chemical. What I don't know
Okay. Okay.
the
Maybe
chemistry.
maybe it doesn't break. Yeah, maybe the chemistry doesn't break down the same in the temperature or something.
Yeah. I wish I knew more. I should look
Well,
into
I
that.
know that the plastic breaks down like the water bottles. You leave them in your car and the sun hits them all day. That is like
Hmm.
straight poison for you. I know that for a fact.
And let me give you a little tip. They had this thing about BPA in plastic that was leaching into people's liquid. And so now they advertise plastic that's BPA free. But what they did was they replaced it with other plastics or other chemicals that are even worse.
Oh,
But they can say it's BPA
yeah,
free.
yeah, yeah. And people
So,
are dummy down enough to just take that as the good enough answer.
right. So, yeah. And again, I'm not a chemist. And so if I get the chemistry a little bit wrong, but there was a problem that was all over the news with BPA and plastics. And it was a real problem. It is
Oh
a real
yeah,
problem.
yeah, yeah. It's
But
serious.
but in order to make BPA free plastics, they used a chemical that's even worse. I believe it's called BPS. But don't it's in that book that I
Yeah, yeah,
suggested.
yeah. That's fine. I don't want to get caught in the weeds. It's just a conversation because I worry about my little dude. You know what I mean? And I hear all these testosterone issues, and I see there's 20-year-old dudes. I could whoop their ass. I'm like, how is that?
Yes.
How is that happening? They look like chicks almost, and they're not trying to be. It's just they're so scrawny, and they look like they don't have any testosterone in them.
Yes.
Isn't that weird?
It's and I haven't I don't have the research on hand, but testosterone levels have dropped within the last few decades by 50%.
So my question to you is, with the porn issues where guys are like peer bonding with themselves basically, and and then the testosterone level going down with the dopamine being so pushed, are these young men going to be able to function properly even if they have what it takes to reproduce?
I'm very worried about them. And there are some social issues also that I see coming. Men are Young men are becoming much more isolated, and part of the reason for that is because they're living online and dating apps. If you look at the research done on dating apps, only about 10% of men get like 80% of the likes from women. Uh, uh, so it's unless you're in that top tier group of men, you're not going to find a woman through a dating app. They're not going out in real life and meeting women. So it's just a spiral of these social conditions and these physical conditions. I am very worried about the mental and physical health of the next generation.
Yeah, yeah, it's actually quite concerning because if you think about it, the people that toe the line for internet, for Wi-Fi, for electricity, for running water, for streets, you need able-bodied men with testosterone willing to go out there.
That's right.
Now, why? Oh, think about this. Think about this. If I was a 20-year-old man and I'm not in that 10%, I'm not in that 10%. Why go fix the roads so the 10% can get the girls? Why
Right.
fix? Why fix the electricity? Why fix the plumbing so that guy can get all the
Exactly.
girls? Why do it? What's the purpose? So you just
And
shut down and you just say screw it. I'll stay home.
that's what guys are doing. I
That's
mean,
not
there's this
good, man.
rash of young men who are living in their parents' basements, living on the internet.
It's scary. So
It is.
as a coach, what is your game plan, man? Do you have any solutions for some of this stuff? I assume on the older end of the spectrum with the ED stuff, you obviously have the experience, knowledge, and opportunity to help other guys. But how about the younger guys?
Yeah, the younger, I mean, it would be basically the same process.
Okay,
The likelihood is that with older men, there's going to be some issues with tissue, long-term tissue degeneration, things like that, that they have to rehab that. With younger men, it's probably usually going to be hormones, but the discovery process is going to be pretty much the same, and it has to be tailored to each individual.
yeah. So I'll be honest with you. It looks like Doing it the old way is the better way.
I do agree. Yes.
Isn't that wild? As a child, I grew up in Connecticut. We weren't that far from Pennsylvania, where you see like the Amish doing their thing, and they didn't seem to be too concerned with COVID. They don't seem to be having a whole lot of problems with reproduction. They're not having an issue with kids staying home and not wanting to work. They're not having, and I don't want to be Amish. That's not my point. But my
Yeah.
point is, though, seeing what my grandparents did and they stayed together, seeing what I did and all my faults, and then seeing the ramification of where my kids are going and what the probability of the diagnosis of the future, I don't know if we're in better hands under these circumstances.
I agree with you. I have the same concerns. I have the same observations. And like with COVID, and I don't want to get political or anything.
No, that wasn't my point. When I was just trying to point out the obvious that
Yeah,
being healthy
but
makes a big difference.
yes, yeah, that's the point I wanted to make as well, is that a lot of the reason why we had a problem with COVID is because so many people are unhealthy and they're living an unhealthy lifestyle. And it's interesting that in countries like in Africa, where they hardly had any vaccination at all, they had much lower death rates from COVID.
Yeah, we're getting too squishy. Because I'll be honest with you,
Yeah.
if there's 20-year-old guys, I'm going to go back to that again. I have to go back to it because I'm going to be honest with you. When I was 20 years old, I worked in construction with my dad. There was no dude over 35 that I was scared of. 200 pounds, 6 feet tall. There was no man 35, 40 years old that I was scared of. And to see a 60-year-old doing pull-ups and chin-ups and crunch it, I'm watching you crush it. And I see these little scrawny kids. This has to be resolved to a certain degree in some way. I wonder if these guys could do the same thing that you found now. Stay off the porn, stay away from the plastics, start working out, go outside, talk to girls.
Yep.
Screw those dating
I,
sites, man. Screw those dating sites. All you're doing is facilitating the 10%. And I don't want to see the degeneration of our society by guys just giving up. There's no point in that
yeah,
either.
I think this is my personal take on it. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I do get the feeling that people are waking up to what's going on.
Yeah.
It's just going to take time. Uh, and then it's a matter of the political will to actually implement realistic solutions.
Yeah, because we like again we can go back to the food and the process and stuff. We're never going to be. You can never undo Pandora's box, right? So if there's a cheap way to make bread, it's always going to exist.
Right.
Not to say that you should take it. I'm just saying it's always going to be there.
Absolutely.
It's a matter of maybe everybody should be canning a little bit of food and maybe having a few chickens in the backyard. Those little pockets of protein there, they go to waste most of the time. They're not going to turn into chickens. So
Right.
there's no I don't know, and that's exhausting because I did the chicken thing. That's not fun.
Yeah.
And gardens are labor intensive nonsense. You get a can of tomato paste for like 55, 60 cents after inflation. And it takes like $12 and 3 months of arduous labor to get one canned jar of tomatoes. How do you convince people to jar it?
I don't think that will ever happen, because people will do it out of necessity, but most people, I mean, you get people who are in families where both parents are working and
Yeah.
life is a race to the finish every day.
We're racing to nowhere
There's
too. It's like
no
we're going
way they're
absolutely
going to come.
nowhere.
Yeah, they're never going to come up with the time to do everything. And of course, those people are going to opt for buying the solution.
Yeah.
Uh, but unless it's a necessity, I don't see people reverting back to doing those kind of things on their own. Not in mass. I mean, there will be some people.
Okay. Well, if you swing the pendulum one person at a time, you're doing more than you should. So,
Yeah.
how's the coaching going?
Well, I'm actually just getting started, and
Oh,
I
fantastic.
was
Okay.
actually surprised that you found me. Noticed my Instagram. It was Instagram where you saw me, right?
Oh no, I believe I caught you at TikTok first.
Oh, okay, all right. I'm just starting to put stuff out there, starting to put out feelers. So this is something that I'm just starting to do as a business now,
Okay,
um,
fantastic.
and so it's very early in the process for me.
You make it big. You remember us small guys. Another thing I did notice, I just saw one of your newer videos. I really like the quality of it. I don't know what's going on with the background or the lights or anything, but I think it was well produced, and I think you. I want to encourage you to continue what you're doing because that last video you put out looked really, really good, man.
Oh, thank you. Because I have been working on trying to produce better quality videos. I've been working on the lighting and the so yes, I really appreciate your feedback on that
Yeah.
because I just invested a lot of money in lighting equipment.
Oh, good. Okay, okay. Well, we'll have to talk about that some other time because I'll be honest with you, I'm trying to upgrade everything a little bit too as I go because the goal is to always have that journey get a little bit better.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I've always been a big talker, but I'm not good at listening and I'm not good at having it play out on the video as well as I thought it would initially. So it's been months of progressively paying attention more, progressively being conscious of things. So I'll be honest with you, it never stops growing until you give up and say
Right,
I'm satisfied. So yeah,
right,
I'm proud of you. The video's great. I hope I can gain something from you in that realm alone because you progressed rather quickly and it looked really good. I was like, man, I was like, I wonder if I could fit this in to the production of this video. And I'm like, nah, I don't think I'm gonna have time because I do have the issue of time too. I'm already what has it been 3 weeks since we did this?
right.
I don't
About
want it to
that.
be another 2 weeks. You know what I mean? So I really got to push this out.
Okay.
Um,
But if you'd like, I will forward you a YouTube video that I used as a guide for my lighting.
Yeah, that would be
If
great, man. Ken, I appreciate it. Very, very cool, man. And it's great to network with people too, and I think that's also important.
yes, I agree.
All right, good deal. All right, on that note, man, what can you tell the older guys and the younger guys about how to best keep their sexuality at its peak performance for self esteem and for just the betterment of men in general?
Yeah, it's not an easy question to answer because there's so many causes of ED. But uh, the low-hanging fruit is lifestyle. If you live a healthy lifestyle, you're likely to maintain your erectile function much later in life. And that is, of course, exercise, diet is big, uh, getting enough sleep, avoiding environmental toxins, and not developing any addictions, including porn, to avoid addictions. Another aspect of that is actually mindfulness. A lot of people are overstimulated, and they actually have to learn how to enter an unstimulated parasympathetic state so that they can relax enough to to uh, to get an erection.
Wow, that's actually pretty profound, man. I wouldn't mind going a little deeper on that whole paying attention more. I do agree. I put my whole heart into some of the things I do, and Ken, you're right. It's so easy to get squirrel, and then your entire mindset changes, and your ability to pay attention, be empathetic, it goes away a little bit. Do you have any
Right.
strategies on how to bring that back to that young lady that you want to be with, to be more intimate, to have those moments?
Are you talking about the mindfulness portion?
Yeah, the mindfulness. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I didn't start meditating until last year. And I feel that by taking it, and I just do it like 5, 10 minutes a day. And I feel that I've benefited greatly. I can be more relaxed throughout the day. And also practicing active gratitude.
uh, actually looking at your life and seeing what you have to be grateful for. And most people have a lot to be grateful for. And that just brings you in a state of mind where, you're less agitated and you're more open and ready to maybe listen more carefully to your significant other and understand what her needs are. Uh, a lot of guys they want to be there for their wife or boyfriend or whatever it is, um, but they are so wrapped up in the problems, their daily problems, that they they need a way to see that their problems aren't as big or as all encompassing as we often think that they are.
Yeah, no, I agree more than it. And slowing down to smell the roses is more valuable than most people give it credit for. Um, you touched on lifestyle a little bit. You want to do that again for me real quick?
Yeah, so lifestyle, exercise, and again, um, exercise will mean different things for different people. For an older guy, it may mean going out for a regular walk or a stroll. If they're physically limited, you have to work within their limitations. For a younger guy, it might mean, doing a couple of high intensity interval training sessions per week. Uh, and depending, and everybody has different strengths and weaknesses. Some people need to focus more on aerobic exercise, and some people need to focus more on strength and that type of thing. Diet, diet for most people, they need to eat more vegetables, more fruit, and less meat, but they should not plan to go meatless. That's way too many people take it too far and they go to a vegan diet, and the vegan diet is a red flag when you're dealing with erectile dysfunction. Uh, a lot of people who've gone the vegan diet will develop erectile dysfunction because they're not taking in enough fat and the
I didn't realize
hormonal.
that. I knew that fat was like life or death. That there's parts of your body that absolutely have to have that fat.
Yes,
Wow.
your hormones are largely based on fat,
Hormones. That's what it was. Yeah.
and your neurological system.
No kidding.
It's a very your nerves are covered with a sheet of fat that allows them to transmit optimally.
Isn't that
And
amazing? Isn't that absolutely amazing?
it is amazing. And so over the past few decades, fat has been demonized, and people are not eating enough fat. Of course, it has to be healthy forms of fat. There are unhealthy forms as
Of
well.
course, of course.
But you really do need an adequate amount of fat in your diet. You do need an adequate amount of protein. What you don't need is a lot of carbohydrates like wheat, rice, potatoes, sugar. You don't need that.
Yeah.
You do need a lot of plants. You do need, you know, leafy green plants. They say eat the rainbow. You know, find plants of all colors and eat them. Um, as long as they're actually real food. But yeah, so that's the diet portion. Sleep. Most people are not getting enough sleep today. They are getting between 5 and 6 hours on average. From That's what I've read.
Yeah, Ken, no, I agree with you. I would say from personal experience, not only are we having a problem with enough sleep, but enough regulated sleep, where you're going
right,
to bed at the right time, you're waking up at the right time, you're not picking up your phone and playing with it in the middle. Just
right,
a solid 4 to 8 hours of
yeah,
nonstop, repetitive times of sleep.
yeah. And I would say 4 would be like an absolute minimum to be functional.
Yeah, no, that's why I said it. I said 4 to 8 because I wouldn't want you to go over 8, and four is probably
Yeah,
it's probably more like 6 to 7 hours is probably optimal.
yeah, probably. And I think it varies from person to person. And as you age, your need for sleep seems to go down. I know that as I'm approaching 60, I'm fine with 6 hours of sleep, but I used to need 8 hours to really feel
And
good.
my teenager sometimes looks like they need like 14.
Right. Yeah, I think there is a lot of variation according to age.
Okay, fair enough. And I agree with you. And don't ever sell yourself short on age, because I'm telling you right now, Ken, you look fantastic for your age. I am definitely going to find a way to splice in you doing some chin ups in this video
Oh,
somewhere, because you look phenomenal. And I'm like, man, this dude can outdo me and easily got 10 years on me.
well, I appreciate that. I'm very fortunate that I've been able to maintain my physical abilities to this age, and uh, some of it's luck of the draw. You can't pick your genes, but some of us are blessed with good genes for one thing and genes for another. But it all comes out in the wash. I just happen to have genes that have helped me to maintain my physical strength.
I find effort it needs to get its due credit also. Um, a lot of people don't have the effort in them. Or you know what?
Yeah.
Actually, you touched on it a little bit on your video there. The one I really liked, that your self esteem goes down and your self worth drops a little bit, and your ability to manifest that inner strength to go out there and run or go out there and put the effort in diminishes dramatically. You know,
Yes.
and it's almost like it's reciprocal. It almost like self loops and feeds itself. Um, Yeah, you've touched on a bunch of that stuff, and I really do appreciate some of the things you talk about on that.
Yeah, and I thank you for bringing that up because that's true. You know, as your self-esteem suffers, you lose the motivation to do what you need to do to build your self-esteem. And it is cyclical, as you said. So yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for bringing that up because that's very important.
It really is. And I talked to a man a few months back about emotional. What was his thing? I think he was a Ken too. Um, but his podcast was pretty good, and I was a little rough on him. But I realize now that the guy was really onto something serious, because we're more than just physical. We're more than just there's emotion involved, and all of it really has to be aiming in the same direction to really get the full benefit of everything that you were given, whether it be your genetics, whether it be whatever it is that you have as a talent. Those things don't manifest themselves to their fullest extent unless all of who you are is aiming at that same goal at the same time.
I couldn't have said it better myself. That I think you said it perfectly.
Awesome. Um, so where are you at right now, Ken? What's going on with the effort that you're putting out there? How's it working out? Like I said, the videos are fantastic. What else have you been able to fine tune and better to get more out there? Have you got any traction?
I am not getting a lot of traction yet. I'm not surprised by that. I wasn't expecting this to be an overnight thing. Um, I am trying to refine my ability to get my message out. Uh, as you can see that I've been working on trying to improve the quality of my videos. Um, and I've been uh, playing with various elements of social media to see what sticks and what doesn't. I'm still in this very experimental stage
Yeah.
in trying to get my message out. I am working with my mentor, Dr. Rachel Ross. She has an online program for guys who are trying to improve their erection or their erectile function. Um, and I'm working with her on this course. I'm kind of the moderator. I'm answering questions, and the idea is that eventually some of the guys will want coaching. That they they will feel the need for some kind of hand holding through the process, and hopefully they will turn to me.
That's great, man. Actually, that sounds fantastic. Yeah, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. most of your competition is in a sprint right now, and they're going to fizzle out really quick.
Yes, good
So
point.
focusing on what is working, what isn't working, where do I stick better? I stick better with TikTok, or I stick better with Instagram, whatever it be, and slowly growing that process is going to really focus you in and get you into what you're going to do best. And it sounds like as you keep your mind focused on helping her and the men that are on there and moderating and stuff, you're going to constantly be feeding your mind the same direction. So, Ken, it sounds like actually you got a great thing going. It's just a matter of can you go the distance?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm passionate about this, so I'm gonna keep running until I can't run anymore.
That's awesome, man. All right, great. Well,
Okay. Well, I'm always available. Anytime you want to continue the conversation, just reach out.
absolutely.
I think a great time talking to you these past few weeks, and I think we've had some really good exchanges, and
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
All right, good deal. I will definitely tell you when this goes up. It takes about an hour to condense it into an MP4, and then it takes about an hour to upload it. I don't know why it's such a arduous, tedious process, but to actually upload an hour-long video takes like an hour on Spotify. I don't know if their servers are slow or what it is. I don't know.
I have no
I have no
idea.
idea. I wish I did know because I would love to speed that process up because it's very frustrating because then I go to YouTube and try to do the same thing and their servers are slow too and I'm like, this is absolutely exhausting to try to get this because that it's not just the editing, it's not just the talking, it's all these other hours.
Right, right.
Yeah. But yeah, that's great. I will promote this as much as I can, and I'll let you know when it's all said and done. But if you want, you can go ahead and plug all your stuff that you got, man. I'm really excited to be able to help you out with this.
Sure. Well, right now I'm on Instagram and TikTok with the same handle. It's healthy sexuality with Ken, but in sexuality the E is replaced with a 3.
Yes. Yep. I
And
have that. Yep. I have that. I'll make sure I put that on there.
my YouTube is Healthy Sexuality with Ken LLC, and I have a website, but I'm in the process of rebranding, but there is a website there. It's www.healthysexualitywithken.com.
Ken, that's fantastic, man. I appreciate your time. Thank you for being approachable.
Oh, great. This was a great conversation. I really love your podcast.
All right. Thank you, man.
Weather is good, sun is shining, shining. Don't get my vibe.